Welcome back to Third Phase of Moon. Blake Cousins here. Wow, we had a special interview today with the man himself, LUE ELIZONdo, via Dr. J Radio Live. He was able to get him on a show earlier this morning, and Dr. J invited us on to ask LUE ELIZONdo questions from Third Phase of Moon. And tell you what, we were able to ask him some huge ones. And what's crazy is his response or non-response at points. It's interesting to note that LUE ELIZONdo seems that he's aware of Third Phase of Moon, no doubt about it, and he's aware of some of the big questions around LUE ELIZONdo himself, including the technology that we believe are in the assets of private organizations that possibly manufacture the Tic Tac gimbal themselves. It's not in government's assets, but indeed we believe that it's in a private corporation, kind of like Lockheed Skunk Works. Well, anyway, we were able to get into this interview with Dr. J while Dr. J was interviewing LUE ELIZONdo, and let me just share you some portions here. Take a look.
Dwindle away, and once you get to about 200 feet, it's almost pitch black to the naked eye. And of course, military submarines, I can't go into detail here, but travel considerably deeper than that. So to quote unquote see a UAP underwater, in order to do that, we use acoustics. We use sonar. So in the atmosphere, we use radar, and underwater we use sonar. And sonar, as we know, travels at the speed of sound underwater, which is a very dense medium, and you can get some fairly accurate readings. There is, again, I have to be careful what I say here, there is some reporting that exists that suggests that some military underwater equities are also picking these things up underwater with remarkable performance characteristics, by the way.
Yeah, again, and that being so dense, the water, I would think that's just not possible unless, of course, we explore the theory that maybe it's not touching the water. Anyhow, we got a question here. Blake and Brent Cousins, they're Third Phase of Moon, the world's largest UFO YouTube channel, and they ask, can you ask LUE, why don't we see the entire Tic Tac gimbal video from the beginning to the end? Has LUE seen the entire video?
Sure. So, those videos were released because the contents of which that are now publicly available are not classified. Any information that a video picks up may have classified information in it. It may have sensitive information like specific call signs. It may have locational data where we are, and we don't necessarily want to broadcast that. So what you see in those videos, Go Fast Gimbal and FLIR, are portions of a video that were deemed to be unclassified and fit for public consumption. The reason why you don't see the rest of those videos, in some cases they don't exist, in other cases they do exist, is because the government has decided that that information is sensitive, and it reveals potentially sources and methods. I can tell you there's many other videos. I think the problem is that people concentrate a lot on the FLIR and those 3 videos that came out back in 2017 and 18, not realizing that was low-hanging fruit. Those were the least compelling of the videos. They were compelling and are compelling, but there's others that really would blow your socks off.
That's what I honestly expected, was that we were getting just the crumbs, and you actually got to see different angles, different videos, right? 4K, 8K, things like that.
I did. I was privy to many other videos and photographs and reporting. But it's important that I always caution people. Videos can only tell you part of the story. It's important that people recognize that what a video doesn't do, it doesn't tell you what happened before the incident, and it doesn't tell you what happened after the incident, and it doesn't tell you what's happening from other perspectives and angles, and that's why you need other video, right? So who's to say that there's not other FLIR video out there, right? From another platform, and radar signature, maybe from an E2 Hawkeye and the Princeton and some other, radar sensor units out there. So again, I want to be careful because I don't want to speak on behalf of the government right now. It's really not my place to do so. But I think people can rest assured that there's far more compelling information out there, and that's what Congress was briefed on, and that's why you have now this government taking this topic very, very seriously.
And that's what I'm really hoping for, is the day that we finally get to see this stuff. And as others of my friends have said, when do we get to go to a museum and see things like the Roswell wreckage? If it is what it is, if that's a whole nother story. There's a question here from another friend. Dark Hour Paranormal reads, what is the biggest risk in revealing high technology that may exist while keeping the mechanics under wraps?
What is the biggest risk and in revealing? Well, I don't think there's a risk revealing the fact that there are these advanced capabilities, and I think we've done that, and I think we're doing that. Again, what we do need to pay attention to is the protection of our sources and methods and our collection activities. And that's only because, not because we don't trust the American people, it's because we don't trust our adversaries. We don't want to tip our hand, because if we're using these capabilities against our adversaries, we don't necessarily want to let them know, because we spend a lot of money trying to develop these things, right? And we don't want them to develop countermeasures. So that's the normal world of intelligence and that type of related work. So again, it's not that we don't trust the American people. There's just no way to have that conversation with 500 billion people and keep it from our enemies. But I do think you're starting to see the look. We have conversations all the time that there are rogue nations that have nuclear technology. Maybe the specifics of the technology is classified, but the fact that that country has nuclear technology isn't so much a secret. The same thing with this. The fact that there are things flying around in our controlled airspace that we don't know what the heck they are, we don't know how they work, and we frankly don't have a clue for where they're from or what the intent is. That's not a secret, and it shouldn't be a secret. I don't think physics and the mathematics should be a secret. What I think should remain a secret is our critical technology. I will tell you this right now, that if I had to choose between disclosure and full disclosure and sacrificing our national security, I wouldn't do it. I wouldn't do it. I wouldn't sacrifice our national security for that. Now, is there a way to have a conversation where we can still have disclosure and protect national security? Well, that's precisely what my colleagues and I are trying to do. We're trying to thread that needle very carefully. None of us want to compromise national secrets. None of us want to hurt this country. But what we do want to do is get that information that's not classified, that information that does squarely belong to the people of the United States and potentially the world, but certainly your taxpayer dollars were paid to find answers, and now we have some answers. You deserve those answers.
So it's pretty cool. At least Lou is engaging and trying to answer the big questions, but again, he seems a little dodgy. There's certain things that he can't talk about. Obviously, there is a national security issue in regards to some of the technology that is indeed military and private organizations' assets. But, he's trying to beat around the bush. But then again, we even have another big question for him. So let's get back to this interview here. Listen.
There's a follow-up question from Blake and Brent Cousins of Third Phase of Moon, the world's largest UFO YouTube channel. How far advanced do you think private corporations have in technology? Do you think Lockheed Martin may have developed a Tic Tac? Has Lou asked Lockheed what assets they have in their possession?
Wow. That's a really good question. Let me answer this way. Have we asked? Yes. I'm not going to tell you what the answer is because part of that answer requires approval from certain organizations and military contractors, and I'm not at liberty to answer on their behalf. I've made it very clear what I said, and I went right up to that line by saying, when I was asked, do I think that the U.S. government is in possession of this exotic material? And I said yes. And I stand by that. But at this point, I really can't elaborate much more beyond that, only because this is still unfolding. And what we don't want to do is the truth be told, the last thing we want to do is to scare the gopher to go back into its hole. It's just now poking its head out of the hole. And we're trying to coax it, saying it's okay to come out. It's okay to have this conversation. So, what I don't want to do is preemptively say something that all of a sudden forces the gopher to go back underground for the next 70 years.
So I'd have to say, you're right, Lou. It is a good question, but the answer that we got out of this one isn't quite clear. You could see that at one point, Lou's having some loss of words in regards to some of the statements that he's trying to basically spit out, but he knows in the back of his mind there's certain things that he cannot say. And one of them is indeed that there is this private organization, possibly like Lockheed Skunk Works, that has this technology. He was almost admitting it there, but it was kind of interesting that they did go ahead and indeed ask Lockheed Skunk Works if they had the Tic Tac or gimbal, basically. So that was very, very interesting. And I want to know what you guys think. Is LUE trying to protect us in regards to a national security issue with the technology that maybe it's too dangerous for public hands? Do you think that he's trying to cover up maybe that we indeed do have crash retrieval from Roswell? This is all interesting stuff. So let's get back to the interview. We got one more question for LUE. Watch this.
I got the final question from Thirdphaseofmoon. How far advanced do you think the U.S. government or private corporation are in advanced tech that the public is not aware of? The B-1 bomber was classified for 40 years until the public was aware of it.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of advanced tech. I'm not going to go into it right now. That's certainly not my place to do that. But, the U.S. government and other countries are always trying to maintain a competitive advantage over their adversaries. And we should. I think that's money well spent. We have a tremendous amount of advanced technology in this country. Now, if you're asking the question of if that was a derivative of some sort of UAP, the answer to that would be, unfortunately, that type of vehicle would be very, very advanced, and it should be no surprise that if let me give you an example. It's a bit like imagine an aircraft, a 747 that crashes in the Amazon, and everybody escapes. They jump out of the plane with parachutes, and everybody's fine. But the plane crashes, and a indigenous group of people from the Amazon who've never seen human beings outside of their own little, if you will, village, come across bits and pieces of this aircraft, and they find glass from the cockpit, and they pick it up, and they realize that glass can be used to skin the meat from their kill much easier, right? So they reverse engineer the glass, and they're using it now as a tool to cut skin away from the meat, right? That's not the intended purpose of the glass, right? And there's no way they're going to recognize that, how to rebuild a 747 in the middle of the Amazon. But it doesn't mean that there isn't bits and pieces that can be picked up and certain things gleaned from that. I'm not saying that's necessarily the case. I'm not going to speak on behalf of our government what it has or has not done. But that's probably a better analogy when answering that question. Do we have the skill sets needed to even study and investigate something like that? Well, we're now beginning to realize that the physics probably lies within the realm of quantum physics. Mm-hmm. We still don't understand it very well. So there's probably a lot more we need to learn before we could figure out how to reverse engineer something like that.
The example you said with Amazon, I'm going to steal the example that Bob Lazar said. Take this iPhone, drop it in the wagon trail days. They can have an unlimited budget. They wouldn't come close to even figuring out what it is, let alone powering it up.
Right.
Impossible.
Now, you need an entire infrastructure, right? You need an ability to charge the phone, right? You need an ability to do a lot of things with that phone. You need cellular service for the phone to work, and you need GPS if you want to use a GPS. And there's these multi-billion-dollar industries set up for every single one of the capabilities on your smartphone. And unless you have all of those in place, chances are you're not really going to be able to utilize it very well.
Now, what are you currently doing? Because you no longer work with TTSA, right?
I am no longer affiliated with To the Stars Academy. That is correct.
So what can you talk about what you're doing with your colleagues to further the truth to get to where we want to get to, which is seeing the facts?
Yeah, well, I think that will probably become apparent here at some point in the future, but we are working very hard, very diligently behind the scenes. We are engaging our friends and colleagues, both in the legislative side and the executive side of our government. We're also engaging the media and foreign countries to stimulate the conversation and facilitate that conversation between our country and theirs. We're doing a lot of things to help us pursue this initiative. There's 5 pillars of emphasis. I'll restate them again of what
The
we've
5
been
variables,
doing.
right?
No, not observables. No.
Okay,
There's also happens to be 5 areas of think of this as a military or an intelligence campaign. What we are doing is very deliberate. It's very, very methodical, and has to be synchronized. So, and very well coordinated. So, in essence, the first pillar of emphasis is legislative engagement, which is where Chris Mellon comes into play, making sure that our elected officials know this is a good conversation and it's okay to have this conversation. And then the second pillar of emphasis is executive level engagement in our executive branch, so department heads and secretary level, letting them know that this is a national security issue and they should pay attention to it, right? And to hell with stigma and taboo, because this topic isn't going away. The third area of emphasis is foreign government engagement, engaging our friends and allies, putting them in contact with the right people here in Washington, D.C. for them to get more information and perhaps start sharing information that they may have on this topic with us and vice versa. The fourth area of engagement is media engagement, and that is engaging mainstream media so they know it's okay to have the conversation as well. 3 years ago, nobody in their right mind would have touched this conversation.
So this is an incredible time right now. And, Third Phase of Moon's on the front line asking the people involved with the 8-tip program or any government official or even the public, trying to get down to the bottom of this. We want the technology for everybody. That's the whole point. It needs to be given to the public. And I understand that some of this technology may be too dangerous to be in everyone's hands. And that makes a lot of sense for national security, but they should be trickling it down sooner than later. We should be living in the Jetsons right now, in my opinion, that this technology has been suppressed for probably 75 years now. LUE was saying that it's almost impossible to reverse engineer technology. He brought up a statement in regards to a glass from an airplane. And Dr. J had his own statements in regards to what Bob Lazar stated. But in my opinion, wow, it's been 75 years. Obviously, I think with the great minds that we have right now that exist throughout the planet, that we indeed could reverse engineer some of this technology, and possibly the Tic Tac gimbal are one of these things. We have a lot more questions that we're going to be wanting to ask LUE, and we've heard that LUE was really impressed with the questions that Third Phase of Moon gave them, and they were excited that Third Phase of Moon was on this discussion with the Dr. J Radio live show. And we're going to be supplying the original link below so you could watch the entire video of Dr. J's engagement with LUE. You go take a look at Dr. J's upload and take a look at that link right now. But before you do that, I wanted to let everybody know that it seems that we're going to be engaging LUE a little bit more here in the future. And this is a good thing. And hopefully we could get down to the bottom of all this and what the Pentagon knows and what's in the Pentagon's assets. This is our whole mission right here at Third Phase of Moon, to prove either that we're not alone or that there's technology that has been reverse engineered and we're not getting a piece of it. So if you enjoyed this episode, kindly hit that thumbs up, guys. And you guys keep your eyes on the skies, and remember, we're not alone. We'll see you real soon.
Looking around, thinking it's only you. Only to find we're many more than a few. Where do they lie? How come we seldom see them? Right in between the lines is where they reside. No reason to fear, we know who's here. The narrative falls, trickle through the years on everyone. Solid system, no more lies, wrong rolling through the haze. History worth mention. Ancient connections may see us through. Although not easy to say,